and welcome to my channel, Haylee Marie Vintage. Today I'm very excited. I need a little break from other types of content, so I was just going to take you through this Modes Royale catalog from, I believe it's 1948. This is one of my favorite catalogs in my collection. I love Modes Royale. I think they're one of the most interesting pattern manufacturers of the time. Their designs are super unique and special, and I really enjoy looking at them. So I thought it'd be fun to take you through one of my very coveted books. It's really hard to find a Modes Royale catalog. It's really hard to find their patterns. It's pretty much hard to find any of the sorts. So I thought it would be fun to show you all this piece in my collection. So we'll get started. I have my handy dandy, you can see it has a tripod here. I have my overhead camera. I got it just for this video and so I can do more content types like this. So far I don't love it, but it's definitely better than the very rigged setup I've had for these before. So I think ultimately it will be a net positive, even if for now I'm not the most thrilled with it. So to start, this is the cover of the magazine. I bought this magazine specifically because of the cover. I now, like, looking back, regret. These were on sale for about $45 from an Etsy shop. All of her collection is gone now, but this one really caught my eye because it's that hot pink and yellow and cyan. Like, this is just, as somebody with a graphic design degree and, you know, a lover of that CMYK color space, this immediately grabbed my eye also as a lover of pink and this type of silhouette in general. I had to pick this up. As you can see, Modes Royale. Spring and summer, 1948. I keep wanting to say 58, I don't know why, and it was 50 cents at the time. So that's a rundown of the cover. So these catalogs start with ads. For our first ads, we have Lady Duff. This is a lingerie brand. I love this type of illustration. This is very pretty. Here, this is a fabric brand, Vernie. They talk about, I believe they talk about rayon somewhere in here. Woven of nacre rayon. Yep, right there. Sheer fantasy, spelled very fun. So yeah, that's this one. And then it also tells you again, this is pattern 415, made up and I believe photographed. So that's pretty neat. And also, we'll look at 415 later, but this gives you a really good idea of reality versus illustrations. This pattern, this magazine is starting to fall out of its cover, so you see some shifting here. It just is what it is. Here they talk about the new hemline, which is a longer skirt, is like more of a midi skirt. Hopefully this will be of a resolution that you can pause to read this. It's very fun. This person's very opinionated. I'll read the first paragraph for fun. I'm rather glad the new long skirts have engaged in such an intense concern and controversy of women's clubs, chambers of commerce, Washington, and even diplomatic circles. It really proves my point that fashion fads have made slaves of thousands of women. Perhaps it's just as well that the pot is boiling over. Perhaps it's just as well there is so much contradictory reaction. In the final analysis, any exaggerated fad will at least encourage women to think for themselves, not in relation to their new hemline, but to the extreme style that is decreed as a must. It has happened before, and take heart, dear ladies, it will evolve itself again. Any style introduced to the market, if not accepted by the women who are to wear them, will eventually fade out. That's actually really funny. That's very true. I also like this sentence. I'm taking up the cudgel of defensive women who share some of my thinking for being individual without being bizarre. Merrill M. Mitchell is the publisher. The person who actually wrote this little piece here is Rosalie Gelfer, fashion editor. Here, this is it looks like not online course, of course, because it was 1948, but a mail order course. You can see some photos. I really like these design elements. These are very of the time. And this is like basically a booklet for a career in costume design, trying to move people towards being able to do it by National School of Dress Design, which makes sense that they'd have an ad in this. And now we're getting close to our first pattern right here, but first we have to go through, like most things in this era, there is like very much thought about dressing for your figure. I mean, to this day, there is a lot of discussion about dressing to your figure, which is really disappointing that still today, 60 years later, we're still talking about our bodies this way. But I would identify as fairly wide-hipped. A lot of this article just talks about tricking the eye and creating interest to distract from your wide hips, which is terrible. And it tells you what like works well for you, like two-piece dresses or jackets a little below center of hip and rounded finished off at hip. Avoid tightly fitted garments, knitted materials, silk jerseys, sweaters. Don't know what sweaters have to do with your hips. Taffetas, apparently. I just always think it's really interesting, especially as somebody who in this case has this feature, what they tell us to avoid. I do avoid elbow sleeves, I will give them that. Nothing else in here do I avoid. I avoid wide belts, but it says to avoid puffed sleeves. Y'all know me. I love a puffed sleeve. It also says to avoid raglan. I love raglan sleeves on myself. Hence colors. My hair. Exhibit A. Startling decorative accents near the center of your figure. No, I haven't been recording my voiceover this whole time, so your audio quality is about to get a whole lot better. Now you'll be able to hear better and this will be less egregious, which is sad because I just read you a bunch of passages, but it is what it is. I'll take the audio of which of these two cameras is less egregious, but at least our audio is perfect going into our eye for elegance. We're going into our actual pattern portion of the magazine. So this one first, I think this pattern's really interesting. It's not a pattern I personally would make, but I love the attention to detail of their illustrations with the gloves, the accessories, the jewelry, and then the print itself. You have this really lovely castle design that's pink and blue. And I do think this is really interesting with kind of this side, I was gonna say like trench coat thing. And then I like the ruffle on the hip that goes into here, as well as the gathering. Like, I do think this all makes sense because we're gonna get to some patterns later in this book where there's gathers not consistently throughout, so things start to get a little weird. And this is pattern 401. Each page kind of has a theme, so the theme for this one is ballet length. This here seems to be kind of one of their suit pages. We have 402, 403, 404, and 405. For 402, this is not 100% my favorite. I actually think the skirt is beautiful with these pleats throughout it like this. And this is something that I also enjoy looking at for inspiration. It's really hard to find these patterns in the wild, but I do think some of these you can potentially cut up an existing pattern and make it. I like this cutout too, and it looks like they're gonna have triple stitched lines and some interesting yoke pockets. You bring that up into the collar and you have, again, that double breasted detail. I remember what it's called time, and again, look at her hat. So good. This is my second favorite on the page, and it's just because of the skirt. This is actually a skirt that I personally would not make. I guess I won't say I wouldn't make it. It's that fitting this would not be the funnest for me because my hips and thighs are so wide, and I don't actually enjoy walking in something this tapered, but I do think this skirt is absolutely stunning. The jacket, I could take it or leave it. For me, the details are too angular and it's not my favorite, but I do think it's still really pretty. Her hat, I could also take it or leave it. Going over here, I actually, first of all, think the hat with this one is really interesting. It's one of those like floral hats. We all know them. We've seen our grandmas in them, or your parents, whatever age demographic you are. And then we have this gorgeous suit jacket. I love this suit jacket with these, what do they call them? Double entry hip interest. That is a way to describe that, that's for sure. Double entry. I personally would not use double entry related to any body part of mine, but we speak about things differently in the modern time. I think the lines of this suit are beautiful. I love the double-breasted. I love the curve of the collar within the sharper collar. I love the double entry points. I like a 6-gore skirt a lot. I prefer a 6-gored compared to, I guess this is technically a 4-gored, but you never call it that. I find that this is, at least for me, something I really much more enjoy on my body than something like this. However, this one I think this suit top is really fun. If I had the pattern, this is something I would make up. I mean, I think you could make some really exaggerated lapels and like facings that like fold out and do this. Like, I think you could probably figure out how to pattern this yourself, but it would be hard. That's one thing that I really think is true about Modes Royale, is a lot of their patterns are really hard to just like do. There's a lot of details that I feel like a pattern would really help you achieve, and it would be kind of challenging to draft yourself. However, I don't draft patterns myself, so I can only speak to that so much, as in not at all. Next page, we have our first color page, which I love these color pages. The color pages in these magazines are my favorite, and these are also some of my favorite dresses in the magazine, because these are dresses that all are basically day dresses that you can make really, really interesting. So our first one here is 406. I really like 406. I think this cutout around the breast is really interesting, as well as having like buttons here. So this is buttoning over that, even though it kind of cuts away here, and I think that's really visually interesting. Not a huge fan of the collar, but honestly, you can always alter a collar. I love like this belt detail where, again, you have that under fabric stitch stitched across it. Like, I just think this is absolutely really, really cool, and you could do a lot of really cool things with it. This next one, 407. I think this is so cool. I don't think I would personally ever make it or wear it, but I think it's really cool. This is like a similar, I would guess, technique as the one on this page here. It's just a different shape of being put like folded out, and they have the ability to color block your material, so you get like kind of that extra stripes and those extra pink buttons. I think this is really cute. Also, again, love her hat. Her hat's the best. I also really love this one. You have kind of a almost like wrap style undershirt. which is attached to the dress, to be clear. It's just like a visual undershirt. I love this weird keyhole neckline. I also really love this extra like flap here. I think this is so cool. And I think if you were to start copying Mode Royale patterns without having them, I think trying to experiment with details like this and how they go on would get you somewhere. And then I definitely have patterns like this that I could alter into this neckline. This next one I adore. I love the color. I love the pink striping. I love the shape. I think this is fun. I feel like you would feel like a puzzle if you wore this, and I say that as like a really, really good thing. I think this would be really fun to wear, and again, I really love this hat. Next up, Study and Contour. I think these are fabulous. I love every single one of these pieces, and if I could get my hand on any of these patterns, I would die. This first one here, actually, I feel like you could mimic fairly easily if you could just find a pattern with a bishop sleeve, a peplum, and you just would insert these little triangles into the facings when you sew the facings together and change it to mandarin collar. And then this is a pretty basic skirt. A lot of times their skirts are pretty basic. This one, however, I don't even know how you could like alter or make this without the pattern itself, because there's so many different pieces that have to correspond with each other. I adore this piece. I think it's so cool, and I love like that hip emphasis, but also the way it V's in here and here. And then we have really nice pleating here, lace. And then these shoulders are a lot like some of the 1930s dresses I've made, where they actually like kind of go into a strap here. So you get that waterfall and pleated effect. Also, again, her jewelry and flower crown are a peak. Hopefully you can kind of see it, but the back's also really lovely. So the pleating from the sleeves goes around the back and links them, and I think that's really cool. This guy here, again, adore. This is 412. And I think that's really cute with the triple ruffle on the like side. Again, this is like a detail you could definitely mimic fairly easily. This I think would be a little bit trickier, but I think you could do it. This would just take a lot of experimenting to get where you want to go, but I think it's really, really cool. And then this one here, 413, but this is also really pretty. I love this kind of like weird scarf detailing. You have all these like drapey polka dot scarf details. I actually really like this neckline with the gathered, I guess, yoke up here. I find that I really like this personally for myself. And then you just have the dart there. Really, really Raglan-ish sleeve. In general, they seem to be a huge fan of Raglan sleeves. We'll talk about 414 first, but then we will talk about 415. So here, the waistline. This is really, really cute. I love, it looks like it's a little clown or a little scarecrow, the dress fabric for this, which is really fun. I also adore the hat. Her pose is also really great. I think this is really fun. Again, you can see this here. If you look at the back illustration, it drapes around her back, and it's just really, really fun. This next one illustrates really, really cool. Like when I look at this illustration, I'm like, wow, that would be so fun to wear. But this is 415, which is also the dress featured here. And you can clearly see it has that keyhole, it has the gathers, it has that sweetheart neckline and the ruffles that drape, but she actually like has a body. I think it's really easy, and Mode Royale is particularly guilty of this, to have your illustration look really good, but this is something that it looks beautiful in illustration, and not that it doesn't look beautiful on this model. However, like this dress doesn't make you look like this. You would need to have a drag queen level of padding to have a dress actually look like this on you. And I think it's really interesting to see what this actually looks like made up. Again, I think it's still a beautiful dress made up. However, this illustration really like highlights that dress, which is what these are designed to do, right? These are supposed to sell you a pattern. Also, again, I love the print on this. I love the prints on all of these, honestly. They did such a fun job. This next guy here, fascinating because you have a pretty long ruffled skirt over a very, very thin straight skirt, and then the ruffling detail follows up through that. I think it's like cool in theory. I would never wear a skirt that long or a peplum that long and then have a slim skirt that hobbles you're walking under it. That's wild to me. This next one I adore. I think this is so pretty. So you have kind of a big tuxedo with a really, really exaggerated collar, right? Look, that collar is like going out almost to her shoulder seam. Who's to say if the button and the tie are actually part of it? I'm guessing that would be an undershirt. And then we have a point going to the V and this really beautiful drape from the front. This is another thing that looks really beautiful in the illustration. But I think if you actually made it up, that front drape might feel a little loinclothy. That's one of the reasons I would actually be so fascinated to make a Mode Royale pattern, is they're so idealized in the way they're drawn, and there's so many really complex, cool details. However, I think a lot of these, if you actually made them up, they'd look completely overworked. And this one, of course, is called the waistline, the feature of this page. Next up, we have Seaming Magic. We're starting to get into some funky stuff that I don't like. I find this magazine overall really inspiring. However, there are some weird things, and weird for me is this one, number 418. So you'll see this throughout the rest of this magazine, but there's like all these like weird open back slit layer things that brings just like a lot of attention to your butt. And I actually am a huge fan of bringing attention to the butt, however, not like that. And again, you have this really long, essentially peplum over a slim fit skirt, and that just is wild to me and seems so uncomfortable for no reason. This next one, I could take it or leave it. I think this one's again kind of bizarre with this long peplum skirt over this slim skirt. And then you have like this pocket that just kind of looks like fabric falling out of it. These like really giant cuffs. And then just gathering here, this is the only place that has gathering. So I just find this pattern really like disjointed. Like I feel like the elements don't connect. Like when you look at these, or especially this one, all of the elements connect. But when you look at this one, it just feels really disjointed. And I think Modes Royale sometimes does that. And don't get me wrong, they'll always hands down produce some of my favorite and the most interesting designs that I've seen in a sewing pattern. But sometimes they make wild choices. And then this one here, I absolutely adore. I would buy this and make this in a heartbeat. I would probably skip these cuffs, but otherwise I really love it. I love this like multi-layered trumpet silhouette, princess lines, long buttons down the front, a fun collar. I hate her hat. Her and her should switch hats so I can just hate this look all up and love this look all up. But it does look like she's either holding like a coffee cup or something, which I think is fun. But yeah, I really adore this. This is a silhouette that I also feel like you could actually mimic. You would basically make a dress that's shorter and a skirt under that continues to like protrude at the same angle. They're technically one piece, but you could make a two piece on your own that would be effective in doing something like this. This next one I also adore. I think this is stunning. I love that diagonal line around the body. I love the ruffle. It looks like when you look at how it's sewn on, it looks like the ruffle pretty much stays to the side and doesn't wrap around back, which I actually think is great because sometimes things can become a lot. I don't love the bow here. That's the only critique I'll say on this pattern. Otherwise, love her hairstyle. I don't know what she has in her hand. To me, it looks like a roll of toilet paper. I assume it's a bag or something, but I do. I really like this pattern as well. And next up, we have Seasoned Spices. How fitting for fall. I really like a lot of these. I also don't like one of them, which guess now which one I don't like based on the last ones you just saw me review. We'll start with the first one. This one I of course love. We have diagonal lines, we have cutouts. I actually think New York Patterns have a lot of patterns that keep similar lines to this, of this like really fun zigzag and contrasting fabric. New York Patterns is another pattern brand from this time that I think does a really good job having unique things. But I adore this. I of course would love it in a flared skirt, but not everything's about me. This next one I also think is really pretty. I personally would not enjoy wearing this, but I think it's really, really great. I love this kind of like accordion-esque neckline. You can see again in the back illustration, it would go all the way around the back. For me, I'm not a big of a fan of the contrasting fabric kind of hanging here the way it is. It's likely attached in the seams, which would make me actually like it, but the way it's pleated, it's just a little too funky for me to be right up front. I like my pleats to emphasize my butt, and that's the opposite of what these do. However, I think the illustration as a whole is really, really beautiful. Her headband with her gloves and her little bracelet. Again, I just think they do beautiful details in these magazines. And as you can see, we're in the middle. We are halfway through this magazine. If you guessed 424 as being the one I didn't like, you would be correct. Again, we have this weird back slit that ends in a bow right on her butt, right where she sits. Also, like, I don't know if you have to lace this up or if this is just decorative, but this seems like a terrible idea. And to me, it appears like you do lace it up, like you lace, and then there's the bow, because the front is just like a plain looking shirt with this type of slit. So I don't know. I don't get this. This is not for me. Also, this piece that like peels away and has that gap in the back, also like, I don't know. It feels weird. I don't like it. This one I adore. I think this is really cool. This is another example where you could take one of their patterns and kind of adapt it to what you'd want it to look like. You would just have to find a pattern with a slit neckline, collar. It's like a three-gore skirt or one of those kind of like you sew just a couple long darts here. And then you could just put the ribbon or the contrast fabric in lines around your hip and around your bust and attach pockets that would actually keep everything lining up. So I think you could really successfully adapt this one to not Modes Royale pattern. I will also note, which I think is interesting, this one doesn't have the stripes go around the back. It's just at the front, but they do have the butt stripes go around the back. So in case you were wondering. Next up, Prophetic. How dramatic. I think these are all really interesting. Do I personally like them? I don't know. but I think they're really fascinating. So this one I think is absolutely stunning. I personally would never make it for myself, but I think these diagonal lines are fun. I think they have gathers throughout in a way that makes sense. I love this type of sleeve, and now that I talk about it more, I would 100% buy and make this pattern. I would skip the weird baggy bag hanging off the side of my hip, but the rest of it I think is stunning because you have kind of that tulip situation down here. I don't get the sack. I think it looks like something else, which I will not say because I am a lady, but it's that's weird. This guy here, absolutely stunning in my opinion. I wouldn't make the skirt. This is the type of skirt that I think looks terrible on myself, but I think this is so pretty. I love the like drapes on the hips. I love the way it emphasized the hips. I love the big bow. I love the big collar. I think this is stunning. And I also really like this piece. I think this piece is a little like preppier than a lot of what they do. I would describe a lot of what they do as not avant-garde, but definitely like innovative and unique. And this feels just like, it's still really innovative and unique, but there's just a twist of prep to me to this that the rest don't have. I think this is so cool with, it looks like it's kind of like box pleated with the jacket, but the box pleats are stopped at the bottom as well as the top. So it's just kind of like this peek through. You could have that peek through be a different color and it would be really cool. And then you have these details here. It looks like this is the only place that this little jacket buttons. I don't love the cuffs, but again, you could take it or leave it. I guess this is probably technically a blouse, not a coat, but it would make a really cute denim jacket. And then I also think this skirt is pretty. I mean, the skirt isn't anything super special, but it works really well with the coat. Next up, we have another color page, which as we know, I love. So for this one, it's called The Breadth of Fashion. Again, there's a lot of interesting things happening here. So I like this guy here. In theory, I would want to sew this up and not have it taper up in the back. Again, I just like don't understand this detail. I don't understand why you'd want to have a bunch of fabric look like it's hanging from your butt. I don't get it. It's not for me. Also, what is she holding? But I love everything else about it. Like, I think this draping in the back would actually be really pretty. And I love the polka dot pattern, of course. Here, plaid is so cute. I think this whole silhouette's really cute. Again, these accordion sleeves wrap all the way the back. It has the ruffles and the bow. Perfect. This one's perfection. I love her hat. Her hair's a little bit purple. Beautiful. And this one here, I also really, really enjoy. So this one looks like it's fully lined because you can see the lining popping through here. And then you have the lining matching the pocket. The pocket is a bow that looks like it goes with this lacing. I think this is probably actually a wrap dress that somehow you lace up through here because it doesn't illustrate any sort of what looks like a zipper. I guess what? They were a huge fan of a side zip on the 40 and I'm not. Again, love her hat, her bracelets. She's accessorized to the max, which I again really enjoy about their patterns. And I just love the green color. I think this is a great dress. This dress, again, I think it's interesting. I don't like this. However, I do love the pattern. The pattern's a little White House pattern, or I mean the fabric. I do think this is potentially interesting the way the pleats are and the skirt. But yeah, there's just something about this top that is a little bit overworked for me. Next up, we have suit news, which I guess this is our second page of suits. And again, I think they're fantastic. This first one, I love this jacket. I would kill for this jacket. I love the way it sits over her hips. Obviously, the skirt is simple because the jacket is crazy. Also, the jacket looks like it has two back pleats. And this kind of, you can't really probably see this that well from where you are, but it cuts in like this really tight and then opens up pleats in the back and it's just stunning. This one's a take on a sailor suit, and it's not a bad take on a sailor suit, but it's definitely not the best one I've ever seen. I've definitely seen like Simplicity, I think, that does a better version of this. This to me is also kind of sailor suit adjacent with the way the collar is, but this really works for me. I love the pleating here. I love the skirt. The cuffs, I think this is really beautiful. Of course, I love her hat. And my legs are falling asleep because I'm crammed up here. So I need to real quick. Oh, please don't. Now I feel like really short and weird, but it's fine. Yeah, I think this one's stunning. 10 out of 10 for me. This one, that weird paper airplane but with drape toilet paper situation in the back. Not here for it. However, I think the top is really interesting. These little button details or stud details go all the way to the front. I think this one has potential. I would just move the butt drape to the front. After Dark Drama. This is their evening gown page, and of course, I love looking at this page. Oh, my feet are waking up. This one, really, really cool. I don't love the collar on this. I think it takes away from the beautiful lines of the dress, but I get what they were trying to do. I would have gone with the pleats and making this like strapless instead and gone kind of more like sweetheart pleaty. I think these are potentially really interesting. I'm not quite sure what's happening in the waist. To me, it looks like there's 4 pleats right in the front, and I don't know how I feel about that. It might just be ruching though. And that's $4.37. This one, I think this one's so fun and so campy. You basically have what looks like an understrap within these big overstraps with bows on them, and this really, really like cut sweetheart neckline. And then you have this really voluminous skirt with these kind of weird ruffles coming off it that also look like they have additional tacking. This is very celebration after World War II feeling to me, because it just feels very, I don't want to say wasteful in its use of fabric, but I feel like this looks like a dress that's celebrating, not rationing. This next one, I think this is stunning. Again, we have that tulip skirt. We have that tulip shape kind of in the peplum as well, princess lines and all that, but then this really sharp and interesting neckline. This is really cool. I'm a huge fan of this. And this last one I sort of hate, but could be interesting. The back actually is really beautiful. It looks like both these ruffles come to a head at the back, and then you have this slim skirt in the front. There's just something about the straps that are really not working for me, which would be easy to change. And I don't know, it kind of feels like the top and the bottom don't belong together, but I do still think this dress is really interesting and pretty. And also I love she has that kind of like crown. I think that's really fun. And we have made it to Illusion is the key. But this one here, to me, nothing to write home about. They have an interesting, so it's an outside dart detail essentially. I do like this neckline a lot. Let's talk about 442. Love the hat, which also love the hat on the other one. Actually, all these hairstyles and hats really work for me. Did they carry through? I'm just curious. Did they carry through the flowers? They did. She's a blonde on the cover and a brunette here. Okay, anyway. Back to the pattern itself. I think this one's fun. This is very 80s to me, which a lot of the 80s did take inspiration from the 40s, so it's not shocking. But there's just something about these sleeves, these pockets, and like the cinchness of the waist that really screams 80s to me, even though, of course, this is 48. We're way before the 80s. This next dress is obviously, like I said, the one on the cover. Oh my god, that's so funny. So she's feeding chickens in it, which hopefully you can see that. There's little seeds going from her hands, feeding the chickens. Does this feel like a feeding the chickens dress to you? Because she's feeding the chickens. They're all in a park, apparently. The rest of these feel like park dresses. This one, Anomaly. I think this is stunning. This is the type of dress that I think is absolutely beautiful, but I would never make for myself because I know I don't like this cut across the waist situation. But I do. I think the pleating up here is really fun. I think the button details are fun. It looks like they even carry on that contrast trim and button details to the sleeves. And then the next one, I think this is kind of really, really, really cute. But what is this shape? I like this shape. I would wear this shape, but for something that is illusion is the key, which I assume means like disguising parts of your body, this is nothing if not a belly emphasizer. Like if you hold any weight there, that's an emphasizer. So I'm confused by this illusion. What do they say about it? Plaids with solids are de rigueur. I do not speak French. Disclaimer. Here is a novel apron front treatment, youthfully rounded with white collar. Note how capelet sleeves sweeps, wow, I can read, completely around the back. Okay, sure. Like I said, I think I like this. I think I would wear this. I'm confused on the illusion of this. I guess it's an illusion that it's a capelet or a jacket, but I think it's pretty obvious it's not. Like, you're missing the whole sides. I don't know. Ooh, and now we have their ending, which makes sense with their wedding dress and their bridesmaid dress. This wedding dress is spectacular. It looks like it has a lace. Let's see. The lines are simple. I don't know that I would call these lines simple. So this is like a lace that's supposed to be sheer. So that way you can keep like the sleeves on and all of that works. So it's supposed to be kind of illusion. I love her crown. Love the veil. Love the bouquet. This is really fun. This is a dress I would definitely make. Again, they call it simple. I would not call this simple in lines. We got a hip ruffle. Got a full dress with a train. We have a bow, gathers, extra paneling here. This and this. This is not simple. Sorry, it's not simple. It's not simple. I call bullshit. But it is beautiful. And then this is their bridesmaid's dress. The demureness of the bridesmaid. No, god damn it. Okay, now I have to swap my battery of this guy up here. Be right back again. Ooh, okay, I'm back. Oh, that was a look. I'm scooting in. That was incredibly frustrating. I'm now incredibly cranky. What's crazy is this is actually the second time I filmed this because the first one I had so many technical difficulties between the two cameras and my phone. So this video has been a process, so I really hope you all enjoy it. Let's get back to and talk about the bridesmaid for our final thing. I think this dress is really cool. I hate the sleeves with it though. I think these sleeves do not fit with this dress at all. Like this dress is just so elegant and the sleeves are so, and I say this as someone who loves peasant tops. The sleeves are so peasant for how elegant this is. I love the ruching in these panels. I love the sweetheart neckline. I think this would look so much better sleeveless, but I guess you have to make something dowdy to a bridesmaid's dress to not take away attention from the bride. I think otherwise this dress is pretty. I would just, nope, those sleeves, bye. And also this really ridiculous headpiece. We have reached, though, obviously they end with a grand finale, as they should. So we end with these bridesmaid dresses, and here we have more ads. They have their spring forecast. There was nothing that exciting. I read through this. I do like hats, small over to one side, feather trimmed. Jewelry, huge stones tied with black velvet ribbon, which is so funny because I feel like that's just like a style that has stuck around forever and been around for a very long time, because it's not like this is even the first time that appeared. Pearl necklace with pendants of large pearls. Oh, I did like the note on the gloves. Gloves, important. With low cut dresses, gloves worn way above the elbows. So you know, if you have too much chest out, you better cover those arms and those hands. Here we have our like second to last set of ads. We have a few more pages of ads to go. So yeah, second to last page of ads. We have an adjustable dress form. We have a like something to learn millinery at home. A lot of people made their own hats, which is really interesting to me. You have like a bunch of different hobby books you can order for all these different things like textile decorating, underwear and lingerie, pattern and costume designing, designing by draping, and it has like a book and then a price on each of these. The most expensive book, which is How to Make Your Own Dolls, is $2.50. Some of the cheaper books are How to Make and Design Smart Clothes, How to Make and Trim Your Hat, and Fun for a Rainy Day. This next one up, I read through this whole ad. It's called Advice for Bad Skin by Betty Memphis, and it's a fake how to get rid of your skincare woes. This is an advertisement for a product. It's an advertisement for Viderm, which is, it seems like a prescription acne treatment, which is interesting, but it's not actual advice for bad skin. Here we have, it looks like they're starting to run special images in the Californian. So maybe I'll have to see if I can hunt up any of those magazines because it's so hard to find a Modes Royale. And then they have another adjustable dress form. I think it has a Dritz button maker kit, which I've actually possessed one of these at some point, so that's kind of fun. Actual size of the buttons, a little bit bigger than my finger. Favorite notion, available at your favorite notion counter. Here, this tells you all the yardage for everything that you saw in this catalog. And then it tells you where to find all the patterns. It's so hard to find Modes Royale patterns today in the present. It's really interesting to see all of these laid out, and admittedly this is probably like not that many shops compared to like what Simplicity or Advance or any of those brands are, but it is interesting because I watch for Mode Royale patterns like a hawk, and I almost never see them. Also does note their standard measurement chart. Their measurements are, I guess they're technically slightly bigger by like a ½ inch than some of the other patterns. If you happen to own a Modes Royale and you feel the desire to send it to your favorite YouTuber, I am a 14 or a 16 in Modes Royale. I could make either work. And what I will note, which is always good to know, so there are patterns that go up to larger sizes in vintage patterns. They're still really hard to find, but they do exist. However, Modes Royale, the largest measurements that they provide for is a 39-inch bust, a 32 waist, and a 41-inch hip. So that's something good to know. I just want to note that in case you're going on a hunt. So you know their size range is between a 35 and a 41-inch hip, a 25.5 to a 32-inch waist, which actually is not the smallest waist I've seen, and a 32.5 to a 39-inch bust. I suspect because these patterns are advanced that they're not trying to fit teens. And then here is the last page, which is an ad for shoulder pads, which is really fun and cute. It seems like these shoulder pads must be semi-expensive because like this whole book was 50 cents and a blouse shoulder pad is $1.75 and coats are the most expensive at $4.75, so that's really interesting. This also looks like, so I don't know what the stamp on the back is for, but it says Oliver Newsstand. So I guess I assume that's the newsstand this was sold on, and it was sold in, does that say New Orleans? Yeah. So this edition was, I guess, probably sold at Oliver's Newsstand in New Orleans. So that's really interesting and kind of fun. So that is this pattern book. I hope you really enjoyed it. I thought this was a fun video to film despite the technical difficulties. If these are videos that you really vibe with, I do have either 2 or 3 more Le Mode magazines, and then I also have other really interesting books. So yeah, if this resonated with you, if you enjoyed this video, definitely let me know and I'll do these again in the future. This in theory was going to be an easier, more low effort video, but I already have 45 minutes of footage, so I suspect it is not indeed easier or more low effort. I mean, it's lower effort than sewing, but I don't know that I would describe it as low effort at all. However, I would still love to share the rest of my collection of these with you. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, let me know. I now got this special tripod that's up above me right now to make these with, so these will be a lot easier for me. I am going to, I was gonna say toodaloo, should that be my new outro? If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and comment down below. I also have a Patreon and a Ko-fi where you can go over and subscribe for monthly membership. You'll get access to videos early over there. What else do I have? And then of course, subscribe and stick around if you enjoyed this. I did get my Oz Claws, whatever, on a Moods Royale pattern that I'm really excited about, so hopefully stay tuned for projects like that. But we're gonna have a whole bunch of other sewing projects first, so hopefully you'll stick around and enjoy those, and I will see you next week. Toodaloo!